Good morning, and welcome to the second annual Mesa Visitor Industry Summit. It's been quite the journey since we last convened this summit. Much has been accomplished, and yet we still have a long way to go. But witnessing firsthand the resiliency of Mesa's hospitality industry and the storms our community weathered together over the last 18 months was truly inspirational to me. Visit Mesa conducted a number of campaigns, lending support to small businesses. We developed countless promotions that featured you, our partners, and we secured more positive headlines celebrating Mesa and our mission to promote the value and vitality of the visitor economy than we could have possibly anticipated. We quickly discovered that coming together is what guided our destination out of crisis. Our resilience can truly be credited to the strong foundation that existed for Visit Mesa, our partners, and stakeholders. As we kick off this year's annual summit, we're kicking off the year on a high note, earning praise and recognition for leading the Autism City Initiative from both Arizona Office of Tourism, earning their Best Urban Marketing Award at their annual Governor's Conference on Tourism, and from the U.S. Travel Association, who honored Visit Mesa with a Destiny Award for special projects. And DMA West honored Visit Mesa with their Best Idea Marketing Award. It's moments and recognitions like these that ensure me our destination marketing is guided, impactful, and most of all, working. As you may have gathered by now, we at Visit Mesa pride ourselves for being dreamers, for being ahead of the proverbial curve, for being at the forefront of the latest technology, best industry practices and trends. But of course, we aren't the only ones. Organizations like Visit Mesa all over this great land are reimagining themselves and their purpose. And it honestly took a global pandemic for us to realize just how much we needed to recenter and educate our residents on the importance of travel and the incredible value of the visitor economy. Now, more than ever, we prioritize our closest visitors, those who daily live, work, and play in the destination that we proudly brand as Mesa City Limitless. At Visit Mesa, we're tirelessly tracking insights into domestic travel sentiment and monitoring consumer behavior patterns to ensure we're ready for any disruption, while at the same time listening and intently watching for key signals that indicate when we can expect waves of leisure travel activity and prepare for surges as demand for travel continues to grow week after week, month after month. The latest Smith Travel Research data shows that mid-scale economy class hotels across the U.S. have exceeded 2019 occupancy levels, let alone 2020 levels, well in advance of the original 2023 rebound predictions. More pertinent to Mesa's hotel industry is the news that non-luxury hotels are leading ADR growth. Mesa's hotel and motel product mix is benefiting the most from the climbs the industry is seeing in daily rate. And we expect it to continue as U.S. vaccination rates steadily increase and industry best practices regarding travel safety are fully embraced. Leisure travel will continue to lead the recovery as we close out this calendar year, and many of those gains will be seen in the form of high weekend occupancy. As youth sports and tournament activity remain strong in Mesa, weekend hotel and short-term rental consumption across our city will be the gift that keeps on giving. Group demand is improving for Greater Phoenix, but we're still behind leisure demand by more than 58%. Forecasters have shared that business transient and group travel will be the last segments to recover due to so many other mitigating factors impacted by the pandemic, such as corporate downsizing and the shift to virtual meetings and events. But there is a growing understanding and appreciation for the value of face-to-face meetings. There's simply no replacement for the relationship building that comes from personal interaction. So while it may take a little more time for people to feel more comfortable meeting in person, it's inevitable that Mesa will soon book more corporate, association, and Smurf meetings. As we embrace the new priorities of our visitors and connect more residents with our mission and vision for Mesa, we're strengthening the role of our ambassadors on our For the Love of Mesa steering committee and expanding upon our Visitors Mean Business message and our tourism support pledge. You will see staff and I regularly advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion, both within and outside our industry, and will collectively guide Mesa's hospitality leadership on these critical issues that impact all we do and all we represent here in our community. Visit Mesa will donate our time and staff resources to the newly formed Mesa Regional Foundation for Accessibility, Diversity, and Inclusion, which we believe will help pave the way for a sustainable future workforce in our city. Our agency partners at Happy are developing an aggressive marketing plan led by our visitor marketing team that includes commercial placement into popular streaming platforms and extends our destination promise to the short-term rental marketplace, an area where we're seeing an explosive growth of consumer demand. Our communications team will roll out the welcome mat for clients as they return to hosting inbound press tours and secure influencer-endorsed social media coverage. Our sales teams are also planning their return to partner-driven sales missions and client fly-ins that will showcase all the new visitor developments and product enhancements that were recently completed in Mesa. We're also ready to help cast a national spotlight on all the new experiences taking shape in our destination this coming year, including the sports and entertainment promise of Mesa's Legacy Sports Park, now known as Bell Bank Park, and the largest facility of its kind in North America. You can read all about these plans and more in our business development plan, which can be downloaded from our website at visitmesa.com. I want to share my sincere gratitude to our city leadership, our board of directors, Mesa's hospitality members, our partners, and Mesa residents. The constant stream of positive feedback shared last year, the comments of hope we received, and the care that we experienced from our partners during the pandemic, it served as a North Star for all of us at Visit Mesa. And as I reflect on what we accomplished during the worst 18 months in U.S. travel history, I know our collective resiliency was all made possible because of an undeniable passion for Mesa that is ever present in our community. We are indeed Mesa City Limitless. I would also be remiss if I didn't share that we're anxiously awaiting news of our Visit Arizona Initiative grant that will be awarding much needed funds to DMOs across Arizona. This generous dedication of funds is being made available through the Arizona Office of Tourism and Governor Doug Ducey. Visit Mesa will share with all our partners the upcoming marketing campaigns and efforts that will be made possible with these grant dollars as soon as we learn the status of our grant application. And before I leave you today, be on the lookout for a new kid on the block as we move our Visit Mesa offices to Main Street. I'm a strong proponent for being in the heart of our city, and we all know that Main Street is the epicenter of Mesa with all the new growth that is taking place. Our move to 1 North McDonald will put our team in the center of it all, and will operate our visitor center kiosks and information hub from this new Main Street location starting in January. We hope you enjoy this summit and the informative updates from our sales, marketing, communications, partnership, and advocacy teams here at Visit Mesa. We have an ambitious program of work that we can't wait to share with all of you. It is now my honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker this morning, Greg Oates, with MMGY Next Factor. I had the distinct pleasure of working with Greg and Paul Ouimet, the president of MMGY Next Factor, on Visit Mesa's 3-year strategic plan, which was published in October 2020. It was a thorough 10-month process which included using the Destination Next diagnostic tool, resident sentiment surveying, and 40-plus interviews with Visit Mesa board members, you, our partners, and key stakeholders, including Mayor John Giles, City Manager Chris Brady, Mesa City Council members, and other high-ranking staff at the City of Mesa. The resulting plan is focused, purposeful, and very much aligns our efforts with those of the city to promote the vitality of the city, solid economic development programming, and the overall improvement of the lives of those who live, work, and play in Mesa. Greg is here to share with us a strategic roadmap for the next generation of destination organizations and its partners, the latest trends and best strategies from the most successful DMOs and communities across the globe. You'll want to buckle in and absorb as much as you can over the next hour. It truly is can't miss material. But first, a quick bio on Greg. He is the Senior VP of Innovation at MMGY Next Factor. He works with travel and tourism organizations to develop strategic plans that align government, community, and industry priorities. Greg is an avid collaborator with Destinations International. He oversees their development of the organization's Destination Next research. He also works with Destination International's 30 Under 30 Alumni Council to support young leaders across the industry, and he is a member of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee at Destinations International. Prior to joining MMGY Next Factor, Greg led tourism research and brand partnership development at Skift. He presently lives in Los Angeles with his wife, Susie. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Greg Oates.
Well, hello, everyone. It's good to be talking to all of you today. My name is Greg Oates, SVP of Innovation at MMGY Next Factor. We're a destination consultancy working with destination management and marketing organizations across the world. We actually worked with Visit Mesa in 2020 to develop a strategic plan, and that included a very comprehensive resident sentiment survey as well as a stakeholder survey where we pulled organizations and people across the public, private, and civic sectors to identify how influential people and organizations really felt about the local visitor industry and where you all saw opportunities and challenges that need to be addressed. So we're familiar with the destination, and everything in this presentation relates to Visit Mesa and all of you that are part of really creating the amazing destination that you have. Really, the focus today is to provide a lens into how the visitor economy is evolving and how destination organizations are developing strategies. Really, every organization these days is resetting because of the pandemic and how disrupted COVID-19 has been, and really starting from scratch to identify how destinations and all of you in the destination can work together more effectively and collaboratively to really optimize what you have and deliver more benefits for the community. Really, the foundation for that insight is called Destination Next, and it's a research and strategic planning framework that we develop every 2 years for Destinations International, which is the global trade association representing the interests of organizations like Visit Mesa. There's really two parts. There's the research part, the future study, which we'll be talking about today, and there's a second part, which is called the scenario model and assessment tool, which is what we used when we worked in Visit Mesa to identify where stakeholders saw opportunities and issues. So I'm going to go through the key takeaways from the Destination Next future study, and then provide some case studies that I think you will all find interesting. The way we always develop the future study every couple of years is we assemble a global advisory group of CEOs around the world. And you see here who they were this time in 2021. Because of COVID and because everything is so fluid when we talk about the future, we pulled together a larger group than we've ever had before to really try and get as much input to determine how destination organizations are developing strategy, both for short-term recovery and then medium-term and long-term growth. We also created 6 advisory panels, again, pulling together more people than we ever had before to try and really identify how not just tourism organizations were looking at strategy, but organizations across many different sectors. So we spoke with business and tech disruptors, the Googles and Amsterdam Smart City, and all different types of social media platforms and data companies. We spoke with community and government leaders, very much focusing on the public sector and the civic sector and seeing how they were collaborating throughout COVID and trying to understand best practices there. Industry organizations and associations like Destinations International and PCMA and so many others that look at both the leisure and the business events side of our industry. Of course, we spoke with probably 100 plus destination organizations, DMOs, DMMOs around the world in the entire supply chain. So looking at all of the different segments in our industry, hotels, airlines, cruise, meetings, event technology, transportation logistics, spoke to all of those people. We spoke with event organizers and tour operators. So the clients, people who are deciding where to host events and how to help people navigate a destination and experience development and all of that. And then we looked at other key sectors. We looked at banking, finance, transportation, fashion, food. We spoke to as many people across every segment of business that we could to understand how business is evolving coming out of COVID. Based on all that research, we identified 100 trends in the global tourism economy. We segmented that in various ways, but really trends that were shifting how consumers decide to buy what they buy. From that, we developed 80 strategies. And again, all of this was done with the advisory groups and the panels to look at what were those top strategies related to destination marketing, destination management, relating specifically to the destination organizations that destination leaders were using to capitalize on the trends and mitigate some of the impacts moving forward. Then we put that into a survey, and the idea was, let's take those 100 trends and 80 strategies and see how destination leaders around the world rank those in terms of importance and relevance for their organizations and specific destinations. We had over 700 participants participate in that survey. This was the summer of 2021 from 52 countries. So a really wide breadth of input on the trends and strategies, although probably about 60% of the participants were from North America, so still heavily leaning more domestically. So I'm going to now go through what some of those top trends are, followed by the strategies, and looking for really some of the big movers and some of the new trends and strategies that came out of the survey. And that's important to note that every time we do this every 2 years, we introduce new trends and new strategies, and we delete some ones that didn't rank high before to make sure that this survey is relevant with the time and the era that we're in. So we look for new trends and strategies that ranked really high in the survey, or ones that moved a lot significantly. So just going to provide a little bit of highlight on that. In terms of the top 100 trends, pulled together the top 15, but again, really wanting to look at where there were big shifts. In some cases, there weren't, but we really need to identify those things that remain critical, like the number 2 trend, that customers are increasingly seeking a unique, authentic travel experience. We've been talking about this for well over a decade, but just as we're talking about new trends and new strategies, just want to really emphasize that some are still critical that we might not highlight so much, but they're just absolutely core to why a destination organization exists. So that was the number 2 strategy, but we had these ones here that were either new or moved high in the rankings. So I'll go through those now. The number 1 trend globally, according to 700 destination leaders that we've never had before in this survey, and we've done it 4 times now in the last 8 years. But where destination leaders saw the biggest trend was how aligning government, community, and industry priorities drives overall destination competitiveness, destination performance, destination brand. But bringing the public, civic, and private sectors together, the more that all of those entities collaborate, the better it is for the community and destination as a whole. So we thought that was interesting how that just shot to number 1, and by quite a margin. Number 6 was jumped 10 spots. So the idea of travelers are seeking more personal enrichment and well-being. So trying to identify how visitors are making purchase decisions and how they're choosing destinations and what they want to do in the destination. We've talked about transformative travel for years, purposeful travel, but being more intentional about where you're deciding to go and how you're deciding to spend money. So that was a big mover. And then this was brand new, and this came out of COVID, of course. Destinations with outdoor appeal succeeded much better than a lot of destinations without that. This went right to number 14, but the focus wasn't just on outdoor experiences, but more innovative, more dynamic outdoor experiences, and continuing to evolve the product and experience to remain competitive. In terms of overall strategies, again, same process here. These were the top 15 strategies out of 80 strategies specific for destination organizations in terms of how they develop their organizations and what priorities they focus on, both again for the short and long term. In terms of the strategies we really wanted to focus on, here are 4 within the top 15, 3 of them new and 1 a big mover. So focus on those. But again, going back to this idea that we can't forget, the core reasons and core strategies about how destination organizations are looking at strategy. Number 1 was still, as it has been, or it's been number 1 or number 2 for the last 3 or 4 versions of Destination Next Future Study, this idea of focusing significant attention on content creation and dissemination strategies. So that remains the number 1 focus for destination organizations. But what's interesting is how that content is evolving and how you're looking at evolving the types of stories and the types of messages that you're trying to get across to customers, because the same idea relates to the number 4 strategy, which is new, and that's building the destination brand around the community's goals, values, and creative energy. And the idea that, in essence, you're selling the community versus selling the destination and experiences. You're still doing that, of course, the focusing on the destination and the experiences, but in a new way where you're talking about the people behind those experiences and behind the overall visitor experience. One example here is Nashville CVB Visit Music City that last year produced a $500,000 documentary. It's 1 hour long. It's called It All Begins with a Song, and it's focusing on the songwriters in Nashville. And the goal was really to talk about the creative energy and how people come to Nashville to chase their dreams and find like-minded communities. And there's this spirit here where if you visit, you can really capture that and feel part of that. And that's following on the footsteps maybe 4 years ago, where they developed a $350 million documentary that focused on the singers themselves. This time it was on the songwriters, and really getting that feel for that local vibe. So that's one example of that, and we'll have some more examples of that coming up. This one here is, I think, one of the best examples of leveraging sort of that energy that a community has to identify what the destination is all about and why it's interesting to visit. Visit Fort Worth has put together 20 videos called Fort Worth Stories that focus on one individual and what their values are, how those values are realized, and how they really dig into the community and want to be influential in the community and be part of developing the community, with the idea that if you're going to promote a destination's creative spirit, the only way you can do it, or innovative spirit or whatever that energy is. The only way you can do it is through the voice of local people. This video here is focusing on entrepreneurialism and diversity. It was developed in concert with the city of Fort Worth, really to tell a news story about what the city is all about.
I want to create spaces that bring people together. One of my objectives for Fort Worth Barbershop is to create this space where cultures collide, where people from different walks of life that otherwise may not cross paths, all of a sudden they cross paths here at the barbershop. We'll have the young hipster sitting next to an old cowboy with boots. We want to be a place that represents diversity the same way that our city truly does. We want to create a space where people are having conversations they may not be having in other places in their life. We don't have majestic mountains, and we don't have an ocean, but we have people, and I think that it is our people that make the community what it is. As you spend more and more time in Fort Worth, I think what people come to realize is that there's some really special stories, and there's some really interesting people that are creating what we love about the city. So I want to create legacy. There's so many factors that are pulling people apart. I want to bring people together in people's heart of hearts. People are good, and I want to be a little part of helping create that and make guys look and feel great.
So like I said, find your community. I think that's a perfect example of a destination that's really promoting its community and what the community is all about, above and beyond the destination experience. Moving on to some of the other big movers or new strategies. Number 8 out of 80 strategies, be more involved in economic development initiatives. So how does a destination organization support the priorities of the public sector and the civic sector, and just big things the city wants to do beyond tourism, but to leverage that visitor spend, that foreign direct investment, that visitor economic activity to support the development of some of those initiatives. And then really what brings all this together, and it's one of the biggest conversations in our industry coming out of COVID, is to improve data management and digital strategy to optimize marketing and ROI. Because back, if you all remember, in March 2020, the first thing everyone did was start looking at data. What signals still were relevant, if there were any signals about how people were searching for your destination or your product. And we've learned a lot in those last 18 months. And there's been a lot of innovation in terms of different data management companies and the products and services they're offering organizations today. So also in the global survey we did, we asked destination leaders to identify what were their critical key roles and key performance indicators today, and how they see those evolving in 3 years, and what really were the ideal roles and KPIs that they were striving for in the future. So I'm going to just show now what the roles and KPIs today are, and then a really interesting shift into where organizations see their roles and measurements of success evolving. So these were the current organization roles as of summer 2021. Brand marketing, brand management, 1 and 2 as expected, and then we identified 18 other roles. But when you look at where destination leaders see their organizations evolving to be more effective and more relevant, more valuable for the community and partners, you see some big jumps here. So destination and product development, focusing on the supply side, focusing on enhancing the overall experience as much as driving demand. So now that's a top 3 sort of priority, and we already see a lot of destinations moving in that and have been for years, but clearly a big jump there. And then again, the other one here being data research and providing business intelligence for the partners and the community overall, some big shifts. Again, a bit more emphasis on visitor experience and services, and workforce development down here, 17 to 14. Clearly with everything that's happening today is a bigger priority. In terms of key KPIs, these are where destination leaders feel their most significant metrics are now, or at least the ones they're looking at the most: economic impact tourism, room nights generated, hotel performance metrics, really the top three there. Looking ahead, and again, this is a global survey of 700 destination leaders, a big jump in visitor satisfaction. So looking at how visitors really respond to the experience and doing it more often in the year, doing it at different places, speaking to more visitors potentially, but really looking at how to drive repeat visitation and visitor loyalty. Another big changer was resident sentiment. We worked on the resident sentiment there in Mesa, some interesting takeaways, but much more important, looking ahead. And then social and environmental impacts, looking beyond the economic impacts, and what are the impacts of the visitor industry on the environment and socioculturally in terms of how the visitor industry benefits a broader breadth of the community. Some huge jumps there. Now, after we do all of that, and this is summing up the future study before we get into case studies, every time we do this every 2 years with the future study, we pull all that data together. We go back to all those advisory panels and the advisory group, and we say, okay, what are the big takeaways here? What are the three big strategic transformational opportunities that destination leaders should really be focusing on, both for short-term recovery and long-term competitive advantage? And for 2021, we have widespread consensus and agreement with everyone that worked on this project together. The first one is destination alignment. Really this idea that when government, community organizations, and visitor industry and all industry come together, that's what drives overall destination performance. This isn't a new idea. The World Economic Forum has been putting out every 2 years its Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index, which is entirely based on that. That's a national focus, but very much along these lines. And COVID kind of brought everyone else sort of into this same reference, the same focus on how important collaboration is. Number two is really sustainable and equitable destination development. So looking at destination development, looking at that supply side of the equation, but doing it in a way that's sustainable and supports diversity, equity, inclusion across all realms, and marrying people, planet, profit, and policy. And policy speaks to that first one of trying to get everyone on the same page. The third one is this idea of values-based marketing, like we discussed with both Nashville and Fort Worth, and that the new competitive advantage is transcending the destination experience or experiences, because often those are commoditized. There's so many destinations that are offering similar experiences, and it's become so competitive. So looking at the people in your community as a way to sort of drive competitive advantage and support how you talk about the destination. We've done this before. This isn't entirely new because we talked about influencers, campaigns, and whatnot. We're being much more structured and holistic around that moving forward. So now just going to share a few examples and case studies for each of those. Again, everything in here applies to Visit Mesa and the whole ecosystem of the visitor industry across the city in some way, shape, or form. One great example of how things are evolving in terms of aligning destinations is really this rise of interest in destination master planning and putting together master plans, or a tourism master plan, or some people call it a destination management plan or a destination master plan. But because things have been getting so complex and evolving so much, not just during COVID, but even before then, in terms of what the visitor industry really means and how the tentacles of that industry go to so many areas of the community, developing that structured, overarching roadmap to align everyone around shared common goals. This is something that we're talking to Visit Mesa about, to build on everything that came out of the strategic plan, but just really identifying those things in the community that everyone can rally around, although that's only half of it. It's really the strategy and implementing and finding champions and people to steward those initiatives forward and keep on top of them, in addition to Visit Mesa's support and oversight related to those. So it's trying to create a roadmap that takes all of these complex ideas and initiatives and challenges, whether that's coming from residents or different industry organizations, and creating that clear vision for the future. Really, when we talk about alignment, we come at that in a variety of ways. It can be just a simple coalition where an organization is working with partners to focus on specific areas, or it could be a formal partnership, which we're starting to see more and more of, where it's a structured relationship where tourism can support other types of initiatives, workforce development, talent attraction, things like that, investment, and then just some outright mergers and integration. Like Visit San Antonio recently took over operations for the Riverwalk Association, the Riverwalk there being such a critical piece to the city, really, that connects the whole city together. So suddenly Visit San Antonio is looking at a whole new sort of spectrum of initiatives and priorities. At the top there, you see Travel Portland, and Portland means progress. A great example where look at all of these different types of organizations led by the mayor's office coming together to support small business development outside of downtown. There's a diversity component to this, but it's really to find out how everyone can work together to support local entrepreneurs, with Travel Portland being part of that conversation. You know, I have to say also, working with Visit Mesa, some of the things that you are doing, we use as case studies, really leading the industry. Your Visitors Mean Business platform, really engaging all the community. That's 100% aligned with what we're talking about with destination alignment, to communicate the value of the visitor industry and how more people can both benefit from that visitor activity and contribute to it. Every destination organization wants three things. You want locals and residents to understand what it is you do. You want them to support what you do. And ultimately, you want them to help you do what you do and be ambassadors and lean into initiatives. And it's initiatives like this here and some of the other work that is I think really at the forefront of this strategy. And it's paid off, because this is clearly something you've been focused on for a while. When we did the resident sentiment survey, 91% of the residents polled believe tourism is of some degree of importance to Mesa, and that is significantly higher than the aggregate average of a lot of other cities. So clearly, you know, both Visit Mesa and all the partners in the city in general are doing something right, where you see that volume of support for tourism. Just in terms of overall structure, this is a new plan for Auckland, and sometimes people say, well, that's Auckland, we're not anything like Auckland. Why, you know, what's the value here? But it's really the structure in terms of defining the supply side and the demand side. So here in Auckland, they've identified 12 priority pillars for the organization. 6 are focusing on destination management, destination development, but really looking at how to support the supply side of the equation. And then at the same time, 6 traditional pillars focused on destination marketing and driving demand. So we've been working with Destination Vancouver. This is to show how this is starting to translate for other organizations, and they wanted to have the exact same sort of overall mandate. And they broke their operations by development and promotion, supply and demand. And the goals here on the development side were to strengthen competitiveness, make the destination more interesting, more competitive, to drive all of the metrics that they're looking at. And then on the right, grow the visitor economy, that traditional sort of role for many destination organizations, and at the same time centering that around organizational excellence to really answer the question, what does the future of our city need? Then there were the strategies that they've developed to move that mandate forward. But again, all of those are looked through the lens of people, planet, profit, to make sure all the strategies are sustainable and equitable as they can be. But here's what's key as we talk about these evolving roles and strategies and shifting a little bit into new areas, although a lot of times it's not new areas, it just hasn't been communicated well or identified, or it's not as structured and transparent as some of those new roles are. But Destination Vancouver very much wanted to communicate to the community and all partners that there's varying levels of involvement, and they call it their LEAF model. So leading some initiatives, others they're helping enable or support, maybe influencing some direction around the community with different types of initiatives, or just following and monitoring those. So it's very much to communicate the idea that while Destination Vancouver is evolving, it's still very much a matter of evolving in different ways and different levels of involvement and how they work with their community and partners. And then again, the 6, just like Auckland, the 6 strategies related to development and to promotion. And this basic structure works for almost every destination organization today. Again, going back to the data is what holds all this together. Victoria's probably one of the most innovative in terms of how they're trying to connect every single piece of data that can be pulled from any partner within Greater Victoria. And then on a somewhat smaller scale, but very interesting, in Newport Beach in California, the organization there, right at the beginning of the pandemic, took its STAR report and started asking everyone else to contribute data from across the county, really, real estate, credit card, automobile sales, just to build a dashboard, which interestingly enough became sort of the key piece of business intelligence for the city manager and the chief financial officer to develop long-term strategy for the city. So that's, I think, trying to communicate here how data is really the glue that brings a destination together and helps align it. In terms of sustainable development, and this applies to the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, which are really the foundation for all sustainability plans. We're really thinking about sustainable and equitable destination development when we're talking from a tourism lens. So, but can't state enough, because there's so many different conversations around sustainability, that when we as an industry talk about this, we're talking about environmental sustainability, we're talking about equity inclusion, that sociocultural part, and economics, so people, planet, and profit. The challenge in the past for a lot of destination organizations is there wasn't the mythology or there wasn't the framework to help start identifying strategy. So there's organizations like the Global Destination Sustainability Movement that are now putting that together. And it's not to say you have to address everything all at once, but where in the community you see opportunity to be more sustainable, to be more diverse, equitable, and inclusive, and then coming up with a strategy for that you can plug and play into really as much or as little as you want. And here you see some organizations that are working with GDS to develop that framework and to develop those measurements, because we're all and have been talking about sustainability and diversity for so many years, but starting to bring some structure and measurement tools to that. Again, Edmonton, as the city of Edmonton, is very much focusing on being more sustainable and diversifying its economy beyond carbon. And the destination organization there is aligning with that clean energy improvement program to start measuring impacts of tourism and have that conversation again using GDS as a tool. Another example, which I think is really relevant for Mesa, is something that Washtenaw County, which is home to Ann Arbor and the University of Michigan, their destination plan really wanted to connect the entire county. And you have Ann Arbor, and a very wealthy and a very successful small town with the University of Michigan, all those football games and all that money coming in. But then you had surrounding communities that clearly were not benefiting from that, but also you had all this amazing outdoor recreation that wasn't identified as clearly as could be. And so they developed the Border to Border Trail, but at the same time, it fits within Michigan's overarching state border trail, and developing that really is a catalyst for small business development and visitor dispersal, and just sharing the benefits of the visitor economy to a wider breadth of the community, and also helping more people become involved and supporting the overall tourism industry. This is another example from Corpus Christi on a 10-year Parks and Rec plan. And what's amazing, we find in a lot of destinations where the city department or different departments within county government will develop Parks and Rec plans, arts and culture plans, neighborhood development plans, and not include The tourism people, which is surprising because visitors influence a lot of the success of these plans. In Corpus Christi, they did work together, and it's a great example of how government and tourism are coming together to benefit both locals and residents. And that's key, especially in terms of parks and rec, because that's part of the overall sports tourism landscape, and not just in terms of professional sports, semi-professional, but youth sports, college sports, amateur sports. And what we've seen coming out of COVID, it's the fastest growing segment because families want to stick together. They want to get out of the house. You can do it more safely outdoors. And we're seeing there's significant investments in developing more facilities so that your parents aren't all leaving to some other destination to support their economies and drive your kids however far you have to have them participate in tournaments. But so you see many more cities work with their parks and rec to really focus on that and support investments in sports tourism and the infrastructure required there. Another aspect of when we talk about sustainable and equitable development, of course, is diversity, equity, inclusion, but also accessibility and ensuring that the city is really welcoming and opening to all. Your work in the autism certified city, again, we use that as a case study, but really starting with that and branching out to other segments of the community that are disadvantaged in some way and saying, hey, Mesa welcomes you, we want you, and we're doing specific things to make your journey within the destination better, and a lot of conversation around that. In terms of ethnic diversity, like what Washington, D.C. is doing, where they're actually creating a trail, a district that showcases what different organizations are doing in any given neighborhood to carry on this conversation and sort of support the evolution of how people are talking about ethnic diversity across the country. A little closer to home here in Vail Resorts, which operates ski hills across North America, their CEO came out last year and said, we're not doing enough in this area and we are part of the problem. So seeing at the very highest level shifts in strategy and focus areas related to diversity. And then again, we talk about diversity, we're talking about all different kinds of segments. Experience Columbus developed a new LGBTQ guide, which really speaks to specific segments about how they're welcome and how they should navigate the community to get the most out of their trip. And then going back to Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County, this conversation around equitable workforce development and really addressing labor shortages, which are just plaguing cities across the country at levels we never could have anticipated. But this is an example where a destination organization say, we're going to take this on. They created their own workforce development to help their partners hire, train, and retain employees, but also to advocate for the industry as a place for personal and professional development, and that there's so many great places to work if you're thinking about re-entering the workforce or entering the workforce, or if you and this is really for all different ages and segments of people within the community. So pretty interesting what they're doing in that aspect. And then just wrapping up, coming back to values-based marketing, and this is really subjective, a lot of conversation around this, huge investments from destinations at the national level, regional level, municipal level, small towns, but talking about your community in different ways. And we've all kind of come out of the pandemic with sort of a new appreciation for what community means, and that communities aren't just something we have, they're something we do. And COVID forced us all to work together and become more invested in our communities and support small businesses and drive business continuity as best we could, especially in the early days, and really identifying that energy again. And how do you bottle that and share that with others? So just a few examples here. On a national level, we work with Canada on this, and it's the idea that you travel for more than traveling. And they changed their tagline from keep exploring, which is very experiential, focused on experiences. But then again, if you're trying to attract that US traveler, Americans have a lot of pretty lakes and mountains and good food and farm to table this. And all of that as well. So Canada's moved into this area that you travel to learn and grow and expand your perspective. And by coming to Canada, you will experience the values of Canadians and grow in some way from that. And Canadians will grow from visitors as well. So now their new tagline is "For Glowing Hearts," which is a line in their in the Canadian national anthem. So a clear shift in priorities there. Panama just came out with this maybe a month ago, but this idea of live for more, and that you travel for reasons, and you want to find people within the destination who share those goals and that identity and are trying to do similar things that you're interested in. And again, part of this is part of destination marketing for decades, but being much more intentional and structured and really finding the people to communicate those values in the area. So brand new from Panama. On the city side, I just wanted to share here something from Helsinki, which is getting global buzz, but just talking about how the city supports freedom and is welcoming to all. It's very similar, but it's on the delivery and how they're moving in that direction with a lot more content, a lot more storytelling, and initiatives that sectors outside of tourism are working on as well, and very much geared toward this idea that you can create the future that you want now and really determine where you're going in life, and that the city is full of people like that. So again, it's subjective, it's nuanced, and very much depends on the delivery of that message. But now you look at some of these and you see that big budget. It's not necessarily just the purview of larger organizations. This is Carson Valley in Nevada, just a little bit south of Lake Tahoe. We're working with them. They have an annual budget of $800,000, but their key marketing push is to find all those really cool people in the region and let them tell their stories and share the values of protecting the agricultural and the ranching legacy in the community and what makes that so special. And this is exactly something that we've been talking about with Mesa, and that Mesa could move forward with this potentially more, but it really gives you a sense of what the community is all about. And then also in Jackson Hole, we share this with we get a lot of feedback, positive and kind of not so positive. Some people love this, other people are like, I don't get it. But it's the idea of Jackson Hole saying we've had a legacy in gender diversity going back 100 years, and we still hold that to be so important for our community, and finding women within the area that have been successful and made Jackson Hole their home, and just want to share that energy, that vibe, something they hold to be true. So I'm going to end with a video from them, and I'll be curious to hear what you all think about this. Okay, well, that does it for today's presentation. I hope that gave everyone something to think about, and really I think about how all of you in Mesa can perhaps look at the future in new ways. Clearly there's some big shifts here, there's some more subtle shifts, but really the goal of today was to provide a lens into how the global visitor industry is evolving. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking with all of you today.